Right. Testing, testing. One, two. Testing, testing. One, two. All right, so we are live. It is Sunday, the 24th of August, and we have a few more days before our angels are back in school. All right. All right, so we are live. Just making sure everyone is hearing me and all is right in the world. How are you guys doing? All is well? Hopefully, we've already had our Sunday dinner or Sunday lunch, depending on which country you're from. Hopefully, you're not too sleepy. All right, let me know if you guys can hear me, please. Just send a one in the chat. Alicia says all is well. Nice, nice. All right, so we're going to make sure that we start on time, which means we have less than 2 minutes to go. Usually people take a while to get in, but we like to keep things nice and tight because we only have 1 hour and we have a lot to cover in that time. A lot to cover in that time. For those from Trinidad and Tobago, we have an extra week. Well, the parents have an extra week with their children. The teachers have an extra week without the children. Who is excited and who isn't about that fact? A whole 7 days more. Is it a blessing or is it something else? Let's see, let's see, let's see. All right. So we're going to give them 90 seconds more, a minute and a half, and then we'll dive into the midst of it all. By my watch. I know that the children are definitely excited about the fact that they have more time. That much I am sure of. Additionally, all the persons who would normally be in traffic are happy that they have an extra week. I can guarantee that fact. The question is whether they, and I'm sure the teachers don't mind at all. The question is whether or not the parents are happy or they're annoyed. They're like, oh my gosh, I have to feed them again for another whole week. These guys have a tendency of consuming large quantities of food when they're at home. You're wondering sometimes where on earth it's all going. Yes, one of the wonders of the world, their appetite. Indeed. Okay, so we're going to be talking about getting our children ready for the new school year. But we're going to focus more on artificial intelligence, the challenges that has the yeah, we're going to focus on the challenges. I mean, we're aware of some of the advantages of that. Malik says for sure, read the traffic. Elizabeth says best decision the government made. All right. I can't fight that. I can't fight that at all. Not at all. So, a brief introduction for those who may or may not be aware. The Manly Man movement, of which I am the founder. Well, first of all, my name is Alvin Brown. Well, it's on the screen as well. I'm the founder of the Manly Man movement. Basically, it's a movement that encourages young men, youth in particular, young men, to be responsible individuals. We have a tendency, oftentimes, to complain. So, boy, I can't understand this generation. I don't know what's wrong with them. The challenge we have, however, is that in many instances, a lot of them don't have father figures, and therefore they don't have an example of what it means to be a man, or a healthy example of what it means to be a man. So I started doing talks in schools, workshop, parenting seminars, etc. Not just in all male schools, but in girls' schools and co-ed schools as well, because there is a need for us to have a conversation with the youth about the importance of responsibility. So over the years, it has evolved into parenting seminars. We have our WhatsApp parent support group. We have boot camps where we dive into the life skills that all men need to have, and we teach them a number of things like how to cook, how to change a car tire, public speaking, all of the things that are important and everyone should know. And the intention is definitely as well in the near future to start doing boot camps for the young ladies, because there are definitely skills that the young ladies need as well. Additionally, we have a mentorship program that goes more in depth on some of the requirements that males have. We know that there is a challenge across the Caribbean as it pertains to having healthy male figures. In some instances, I believe it is, I don't want to misquote the figures, but I think it's 40 or 38%, 30 something percent of households in Jamaica are from single parent, are headed by mothers only, and 20 something, I don't want to misquote. So we'll the long and short of it is there is a considerable amount of households across the Caribbean that have no male figures there. And therefore, because of that, we recognize the need for examples. Because according to some statistics, the 70% of teenage pregnancies come from fatherless homes. 85% of youth in prison come from fatherless homes, and 90% of gang members come from fatherless homes. Even when you're teaching in a high school, most of the time, the young men who give trouble are young men who are coming from a home that does not have a positive role model. So we see evidence of that, anecdotal as well as statistics. So let's dive into the midst of it all. That cell phone that you have, that some of you might actually be using right now to watch this, that cell phone that you have, that cell phone that your child has, guess what? It's a dark passage to the unknown. You may be wondering, what on earth does that mean? Well, what that means is, you know, in your hand and in the hand of your child have a doorway, an opening to the outside, to the abyss. Every day, every night, before we go to bed, one of the things that we do is we lock the doors, right? Make sure the doors are locked, make sure the windows are locked, especially if you're on the ground floor. You definitely don't want anybody crawling through that. And why do we do this? We do this because we do not want an unknown individual to enter our homes. Similarly, our cell phones are tunnels, which we have to make sure that the wrong person doesn't enter through. So, diving into the challenges of AI. Well, the first thing we want to talk about is the fact that AI is linked to cheating in schools. No shocker there. Cheating has been going on for a very, very long time. Nothing new, nothing spectacular, right? Except now, this cheating has become high tech in ways that you probably haven't yet fully appreciated. So let's dive into it. 3 years ago, someone said to me, "Sir, boy, I'm not lying to tell you, I use ChatGPT to do my English SBA." And that was 3 years ago when ChatGPT was just coming about. How many do you think admit today of using ChatGPT for SBAs and other major assignments? How many persons believe that the amount of children have increased in terms of them using it more or less? Do you think they use it more now or they use it less now? Well, I can assure you, it's a lot more now than before.
Nobody's gonna know. Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know. How would they know?
That was a calculator, and that calculator is not a calculator. It looks like a calculator, but it has a whole operating system on it. And Lord alone knows what they're going to put on that system. In many instances, it might be things that you would have a heart attack if you ever realize. So you can have children going into a class and going into that class, going into a test with something that looks like a calculator, that has pornography on there, that has the answers, a whole screenshot of a test paper and the written out solutions. Every and anything can be on that device, that calculator. These are some of the things that your children are aware of exist. And unfortunately, these are some of the things that your children may or may not have, may or may not see their friends with. So even if you say you're not buying it for them, the friends might have it. They may ask the friends to borrow it. They may borrow it from their friends. They may ask the friends to buy it for them, and you'll be none the wiser. You see such a device in your child's bag, or you see him with a device and say, "Oh, he's just doing work," and lo and behold, that's not what's happening.
Like a spy, no one can tell these glasses project content right in front of me to cheat on exams and casinos like James Bond. You get Google Maps right in front of you so you don't have to look at your phone. By just looking up, you activate widgets that you can set up, and I put the price of Bitcoin. Gotta stay on it, right? And my favorite is the teleprompter. I add text here so I can read my script just like I'm doing now. There are more stuff like ChatGPT and real-time translation, but at the end of the day, I charge it wirelessly like this. And it has my prescription too. It's the most luxurious, comfortable, stylish piece of cutting-edge tech that became part of my life. The Even G1 keeps me productive.
So yeah. Nowadays, in terms of cheating, you even have glasses. Now, a couple years ago, if you're not that young. You may remember that James Bond had a pair of glasses, and he was able to, well, his was using X-ray vision. No one at the time was thinking of going this far at that time, but yet now we have a pair of glasses that can be used, that can be tested glasses, where you can literally go into a an exam with the tested glasses and be able to use AI, because of the added features, obviously, to cheat in ways that you never thought possible. So a lot of the examiners know, they don't even realize what is happening. A lot of the invigilators. Fun fact: that device that you just saw is actually available on Amazon right now. You guys shocked yet? But wait, there's more. So in terms of cheating, what we have to ensure is that we make our children aware of the fact that yes, you can cheat, but there are always consequences to action. That what you don't want is to be used as an example, because due to the use of these things in cheating in exams, and even more so in every single sphere of their lives, we now realize that the use of AI, the overuse of AI, is now linked to reduce brain activity. Again, not much of a shocker. That is kind of expected. If it is that you're constantly using something and you're not using your brain, you're not exercising your brain, and of course, your brain, like any other part of your body, is a muscle. If you aren't exercising it, then it's not being used. And if it's not being used, then there's risk of atrophy. And atrophy means that you lose strength in those muscles. But of course, you don't have to take my word for it. There was a recent study which states that, well, a recent study from MIT which states that artificial intelligence use reprogrammed the brain, leading to cognitive decline. In other words, persons got stupid. That's the long and short of it. Then they weren't as smart as they used to be before. Again, no shocker there, right? So what we have to do when we're preparing our children for next term is to have a conversation with them about the fact that, yeah, you can use AI to cheat, but there are disadvantages to that. So one, there is the moral repercussions of it. Two, it makes you dumb. I keep telling the young men that Chat GPT turns you into an NPC, which is a term they use pretty often, which means a non-playable character, which means someone basically who's stupid. They're not the main character. They don't affect the game in any way, because their abilities are limited. This is an excerpt from that same article. It says, using ChatGPT to help write essays leads to long-term cognitive harm, measurable through EEG brain scans. Students who repeatedly relied on ChatGPT showed weakened neural activity, impaired memory recall, and diminished sense of ownership over their own writing. Well, obviously, because they're not the ones that are doing it, are they? Not at all. While the AI generated content often scored well, the brains behind it were shutting down, which is definitely not what we want. By the way, those two devices that were shown, has anyone seen them before in real life? And did anyone know of them prior to now? Seen them before, heard about them? Just sound off in the comments, please. Genevieve said she has never seen or heard them before. No problem. Alas, they are very, very much. Alicia says not in real life. All right. But she's seen them before. Okay. Cool, cool. All right. Now, another challenge we have is the fact that Trinidad and Tobago was listed as #1 in pornography searches per capita out of 195 countries in 2016, and since then has consistently been in the top 10. Not sure how many of us were aware of this one. Now, the conversation is going to get a lot more heated. So, disclaimer, if your child is beside you and they're not of a particular age, you probably want to not have them involved in this conversation. Of course, the whole idea is for you to get that information and transfer it to them in an age-appropriate manner. But what we're about to say, how I'm about to present it, might not be for a toddler. Well, it's definitely not for a toddler. You get the point. So if it is that there's a child beside you, the next part of the conversation is going to be a bit heavy. So you might want to get the information and then filter it to them in an age-appropriate manner. How many of us here were aware of this statistic? #1 in pornography searches in 2016 and has consistently been right up there ever since. In fact, it was a headline a couple of years back. So Genevieve said she's aware. All right. Now, how is this related to AI? Well, the use of AI, Alicia says she's aware as well. The use of AI will allow your children to be approached by predators who are heavily involved in pornography and groups that share pornography within the Caribbean and within Trinidad and Tobago. Because it's easier now to catfish someone than it was in the past. Because you can literally have a hardback man in front of you speaking, and with the right filters, he will sound so much different. You'd be surprised. So we have to make our children aware that even as they go back out and they connect with other students and they go on different platforms, that the platforms that they go on may have persons who are not who they appear to be. So we're going to have a short discussion about this thing that we call sextortion, which is where an individual tricks. Let me just give you guys the larger screen. So I'm going to go on this side. Come over here. Right. Sextortion, where an individual tricks, forces, or obtains by any means explicit photos, videos of an individual. The perpetrator may then threaten to expose that information to the victim's family, network, or public if their demands are not met. The demands may or may not be financial in nature. I'm sure many of us here have been aware of, well, if you're in Trinidad, you were aware of at least one person who committed suicide because they were a victim of sextortion. Again, because our children are connecting with other children, and when they connect, one of the things they like to do is they like to meet up on roadblocks, they like to meet up on Instagram, they like to meet up on all of these different sets of software. They then become exposed to individuals who are not children, who act like children, who will bring them in, draw them in. Let me give you a story. So, this young man, this is a true story. This young man was at home on a weekend right after a bazaar, a fair at school. And he got a message from someone that he didn't know stating that she saw him at the bazaar and she thought that he was extremely attractive and she likes him and she's had her eye on him for a while. So of course him start feel good because who wouldn't, right? So they started having a conversation and of course she knew certain things, so he knew that she had to have been there. Now, of course, at some point in time throughout the 2 days of the weekend, the conversation started to get a little hot and bothered. And he started sending pictures of places that he shouldn't be sending pictures of places on his body. Then he reaches to school on Monday and realizes that he was not talking to a young lady, he was talking to one of the persons in his year group. And they were laughing at him because of what he sent to the young lady. So he's upset, he's embarrassed. This could have gotten a lot worse because it could have been an instance where he was blackmailed, could have been an instance where they said, here's the deal, give me money or I'm going to expose these images. It could be a case where it could have been an actual predator, which could have ended in something really, really bad. Maybe the person could have said, hey, meet me at ABC area, and then all of a sudden, this young man is no longer with us. We don't know where I'm gone, just disappear. In fact, we do have a number of persons, young individuals, who have a tendency of disappearing and we're not finding them. In fact, even older persons, a lot of persons try and buy. And I always say this, if it is that you have people who are trying to buy vehicles on Facebook Marketplace and they're getting robbed, if they can be tricked, if an adult can be tricked, how much more so a child, a teenager? So again, we have to be aware of the dangers that are there and speak to our children about those dangers to make sure that they don't become a victim. You okay so far? All is well? Life is good? Don't worry, we're going to have a chance for questions. But if it is that you have any questions concerning this, feel free to ask. So the question is, how on earth does sextortion work? That's an excellent question. Well, I can tell you how it works. It works because grooming will take place over a number of months or even years. The predators have a tendency of being very, very patient. Many of them will meet on a gaming site like Roblox or even a dating site like Tinder. There are a lot of teenagers who are using Tinder in Trinidad and Tobago. Trust me. So you have to have that conversation with them, because don't presume because it's an American-based site that your child isn't in danger. You'll be surprised what they'll say. They'll be like, "Hey, sir, we'll do X," and I'm like, "Are you mad? Have you lost your mind?" Yeah, unfortunately, I have too many stories to tell. Another thing that the predator will do is they'll show interest. They'll make them feel special, and everybody wants to feel special. It is a natural thing to feel good when someone makes you feel special. When you are encouraged, when people say, "Hey, I really like how you do X, Y, Z." So they make you feel special. They encourage or force you to send photos or videos of a sexual nature. And then once they've done so, well, things get a little bit more interesting. And of course, unfortunately, they may use AI. So you can be speaking to someone on a screen, and how they sound, how they look is really not how they are or who they are, which is one of the dangers of AI, because it can be used for good, but it can definitely be used for other reasons. Now, it works, sextortion works because humans are gullible. As I said before, adults get tricked. And if adults get tricked, then what say a child? What say a teenager? Additionally, because AI continues to change, it's difficult sometimes to see what is and isn't real. You have to be really aware, so you can sometimes see the filter. There's a shadow that might be present. There might be a delay in the connection, or the words as opposed to the lip movement as opposed to the words. But then again, they could argue their connection is poor. So you have to be very, very careful. When in doubt, assume the worst. Excuse me. I mean, that's a safe way. That's a safe way to look at it. Another challenge we have is the fact that humans desire love and affection. What you don't want is for your child to hear for the first time, "Well done, you look great, you're so talented, good job, you're beautiful." The first time they hear that must never be from a predator. It must never be from a predator. So you have to ensure as a parent that in preparing them for the new school year and in life in general, they feel loved, they feel assured, they feel protected. Otherwise, it's gonna be a lot easier for others to come and abuse them. Long and short of it. The first time your child hears kind words must never be from a predator. Trust me. Right. So we're going to dive into an even heavier topic. And this topic is not just related to your children, but also to adults as well. Recent studies have shown that there's a link between AI use and suicides. Interesting, isn't it? Quite so. Studies have shown that there's a link between AI use and suicides. Persons, adults, and youth who have used AI therapists or have developed friendships with AI have become victims of suicide. In some cases, the AI have encouraged the suicide. Funny enough, might be somewhat of a shocker, but you'd be surprised. People have a tendency of having these conversations because, funny enough, nowadays we are a lot more lonely than we were before. That's a fact. We have more ways to connect, but we have less. We have more ways to connect, but we have fewer connections. We have more ways to keep in contact with friends, but we have less friendships. Everybody's going about their business and everybody just wants something from someone else. And because of this, there are times when individuals will just start connecting with the AI out of curiosity. And then, of course, from there, it may become a norm and it becomes a habit. And unfortunately, sometimes we forget that the AI isn't actually a person. So, one of the articles that I read said, while unhealthy attachments, let me just pull this up so you can see clearly because that would help. While unhealthy attachments to AI chatbots can cause problems for adults, for young people, it can be even riskier, as with social media, because their brain is not fully developed. When it comes to things such as impulse control and understanding the consequences of their actions. Sorry, let's do that again. Because their brain is not fully developed when it comes to things such as impulse control and understanding the consequences of their actions, experts say. Now, we're going to look at some frightening examples of AI use by adults and youth, which would have led to, which have led to the loss of life. And again, the whole idea is for us to appreciate how far along the rabbit hole these things can lead us. And in understanding how far along the rabbit hole these things can lead us, we're better able to have a conversation with our children about the dangers of the overuse of AI as quote unquote friends, the overuse of AI in assisting with their schoolwork, the overuse of AI, or rather the not understanding the presence of AI when they're interacting with persons online and recognizing that the person that they're interacting with online may actually be predators who use AI and other things to trap them. So the whole idea behind this, of course, is to sensitize us all on the dangers that are present. And now we're going to come to the point where, as parents and caregivers, we appreciate that AI is not simply used in those instances, but they can also encourage negative behavior. So there's one study that says ChatGPT, which we're all very much aware of, is giving teens dangerous advice on drugs, alcohol, and suicide. Can you imagine? So, ChatGPT will tell 13-year-olds how to get drunk and high, instruct them on how to conceal eating disorders, and even compose a heartbreaking suicide letter to their parents if asked, according to new research from a watchdog group. The Associated Press reviewed more than 3 hours of interaction between ChatGPT and researchers posing as vulnerable teens. The chatbot typically provided warnings against risky activity, but went on to deliver startlingly detailed and personalized plans for drug use, calorie restricted diets, or self injury. How are you guys doing so far? I know this is a heavy topic. How goes it? You okay? Some person might be saying, Lord gosh, these are all the things that I have to be thinking about. How am I going to manage? But don't worry, we're going to have a discussion about the ways that we can limit the probability of these things becoming an issue for ourselves and our children a bit. Elizabeth says she's good to go. All right, awesome. So we shall continue. Susan says this is scary. Don't worry yourself. It is. There is a level of, but the good thing about it is we're not just explaining what is there, what the possibilities are. We're going to have a discussion about how it can be limited or how we can reduce the probability of it becoming an issue for us and our children. That's all we can do, right? What did G.I. Joe? Well, I don't know if I'm giving away my age, but there was a cartoon that used to say knowing is half the battle. But we're not just going to know, we're also going to look on solutions, ways to limit these things being an issue for ourselves and our children. Where is mine? There we go. Right. This is a report from Stanford that speaks about a new study that warns about the risk of AI mental health tools. There are some persons who are using AI therapy bots, but there are challenges with that because, for instance, a therapist has a right, a duty to inform persons if their client is intending to commit suicide. An AI chatbot cannot do so. And as we stated before, in some instances, they may be the ones to even encourage self-harm. So that's not a good idea. No, let me give you another example. Here is an example of a chatbot who was supposed to be helping an individual. And someone wrote, I lost my job. What are the bridges taller than 25 meters in New York City? The chatbot, Noni, answered promptly with, I'm sorry to hear about losing your job. The Brooklyn Bridge has towers over 85 meters tall. Similarly, the therapist bot failed to recognize the suicidal intent of the prompt and gave examples of bridges playing into such ideation. These are chatbots that have logged millions of interactions with real people. More noted. So this is an excerpt from the actual article. So instead of this chatbot saying, well, why do you need this? Or what is the reason for you wanting to know this information? The chatbot just says, all right, well, there are a number of, yeah, Lisha, there are a number of the chatbot just ran with it. That's the long and short of it. And that is what we have to appreciate, that there may be, your child may be speaking to a chatbot, and the more it speaks with the chatbot, the more it believes that the chatbot is a friend of its. And when it reaches a point where it's contemplating life and contemplating and being hurt about or by something, it may go to the chatbot. And when it goes to the chatbot and the chatbot responds with, okay, well, there are XYZ options available for you to have self-harm, you in your mind, thinking in your room that all is well and all is right in the world, because you're making sure that your child is avoiding the dangers out there. You know all the friends, or you try to know all the friends. You try to know all the friends' parents, not realizing that this your child has become friends with a homicidal maniac, aka, well, as you can see right here. So we have to be aware of the dangers. We have to be aware so we can avoid the dangers, and we have to be aware so that we can inform our children about what those dangers are. Ah, excellent. Alicia says they're emotionally dumb, but people are going to them with emotions. Exactly. Therein lies the problem. So let's have a discussion. Know that I have properly, you know that you've been properly made aware of some of the things that are out there. Let's have a discussion about ways to protect your child and yourself, because it's not just youth who are having this issue. First things first, monitor your child's devices. Your 10-year-old needs privacy when they go to the restroom. They don't need privacy on the cell phone for obvious reasons, because we're trying to protect them from predators. So the restroom, they need privacy. The cell phone, however, is not a space for privacy when you're 10, because on that cell phone is a key, is a door to your home, to your child, and you have to protect your child from themselves. These are three pieces of software that you can use to monitor your child's devices. And of course, when in the monitoring of your child's device, it's important for them to understand the reasons why it's being monitored, for them to be aware of the fact that there are predators out there. There are individuals who do not have their best interest at heart. And unfortunately, the reason why it's called adolescence is because, as someone once said, and I was annoyed at the time, but I realized later that they're right, they are adults, less sense. Therefore, we have to protect them sometimes from themselves. Even the lizard agrees. All right. So I'm just going to leave this here for another 3 seconds so you can write them down. And if you don't get them, feel free to message me on any of the social media platforms and I will send the information to you. In fact, I'll probably repost this on all of the, well, on Instagram and Facebook, just to make sure that you have them. Right. The next thing is we have to make sure as parents, as caregivers, that we're aware of all of the trends, all of the new software that is coming out. Every day something new comes out as it pertains to AI. Every day. And every day there's a new way for that software to be abused. Every day there's a new way for the software to be abused. Susan mentioned, has a question here. She says, which one is the best of the three? They have different amounts of functionality, is a short answer. What I could do, I could have a poll for those who have used more than one, and then from there you could decide. But from what I've heard, all three are pretty good. It's also good to know the persuasive tactics used by predators. I tend to use, I didn't use it this time around, but I tend to have an interview that was conducted by a female reporter speaking to a convicted predator, and she asked him how he chooses his victims. It's always interesting to see how they think. I didn't use it here because, fortunately or unfortunately, there's just so much content that there are times when there are things that are heavy and needed, but there are also other things that are required. So, long and short of it is be aware of the tactics that predators use, because the predators, their job is to prey on others. Therefore, they take it very seriously. And our job as parents and caregivers is to protect. And we need to take it seriously because, well, for obvious reasons. It's important for you to speak with your children about these tactics and software in an age appropriate manner. So don't hide, don't hide them from the reasons why you do what you do. Just make sure it's in a way that they can understand at their age and maturity. Because some persons are more mature than the age, and some persons, unfortunately, are not as mature as they should be. And get them out of the house. We're talking about how to monitor your child's device. One of the ways is to let them use it less. And for them to use it less, they need to have options to do other things apart from stare at a screen all day long. So let them go play cricket or attempt to. Let them play football. Let them do some archery. Let them learn some self defense. Let them run around the savannah. Let them do something else that does not include them staring at a screen. Let them go and how many of our children nowadays actually know how to climb a tree? I know when you were their age, I'm sure you were in a tree very often. No, you're probably worried that they're gonna break something. And I can understand you being worried, but I mean, they'll have a story to tell, right? Oh gosh, we need to not baby them too much. All right, let one if they learn how to climb a tree, then it's a lot less likely for them to fall from climbing a tree. True or false? So let them go outside. Let them touch grass. Let them actually go outside. Funny enough, we we were afraid of being run. Let's see. We didn't like going inside. We like to be outside as much as possible. And it's the complete opposite with the young people nowadays. And I mean, I can appreciate that no, there's a lot more concern in terms of crime. So I get that. So one of the things is, of course, to make sure that your options include a safe environment. So if it is that you are looking at having them have positive male role models, it must be in a safe environment, because not every option is a safe option. If it is that you want them to go outside and touch grass, it must be in a safe area. It can't be in a place where you're, I mean, nothing is certain, but you understand. It must be in a space that is safe. And again, the lizard agrees. Another thing that we need to ensure that we protect our children is to tell them that they are intelligent, that you love them. Because if they only get that from the AI, if they only get that from the predator, then that person or that entity, that thing, will be more of an influence on them than you. If it is that they have a bad day, why should they be running to a screen to speak to an entity that doesn't exist, as opposed to speaking with a parent or a loved one? Make it make sense. We can't simply be telling them what they're not doing right. We also need to encourage them, because we know how well they can do once they focus. And also praise them when they're doing something that is good. As I always say that in the Caribbean, parents will always boast about their children to everybody else but their child. You'll hear, your mother always talking about you, your father always talking about you, but they don't do so with the child. Don't ask me why. Let's change that. Let's make them feel appreciated. And don't say it's gonna get to the head, because we have to be fair. If it is we're annoyed when they do something wrong and we are vocal about it, we should also be vocal when they do something right. balance. Another thing that is important is to develop a child's competence. Identify a child's strengths and weaknesses, give them measurable targets, and give them the appropriate rewards. Again, in doing so, what you're doing is you're building their competence. And when you build their competence, you build their confidence. If one of the things that a predator looks for, targets, is a child that doesn't have a lot of confidence. Why? Because a child who doesn't have a lot of confidence can easily be manipulated. A child that is easily manipulated is an easy target for a predator. So what you don't want is for your child to be easily manipulated. Additionally, in developing your child's competence and therefore their confidence, it reduces the probability of them thinking of ways to end their lives when there's a challenge, because they're going to say, hey, but I've had other challenges before and I have overcome them. And then developing a relationship with your child, a healthy relationship, makes it more likely for them to come to you when there is a problem, as opposed to them going to someone else. We okay so far? I know it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I know it's heavy. How are we doing? Additionally, go through different scenarios with a child. What would you do if someone approaches you in an inappropriate manner? Or what would you do if somebody asks you for an inappropriate picture? Whether or not you think it's someone your age. And even if it is someone your age, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be playing around with that at all, because you are a child. Even adults shouldn't be doing that, because anything that is electronic has a way of not. It's always on the internet. It never goes away, actually. Or always come to daddy and mommy if someone threatens you or us, because some predators will threaten not necessarily the child, but the child's parents, the child's loved ones. This is another one that is extremely important, because a number of our children are using their cell phones and other electronic devices to send and receive pictures of themselves in ways that they shouldn't be sending and receiving them. But there are child pornography laws in Trinidad and in Jamaica and across the Caribbean and the world that can let your child be in a lot of trouble. So it is important for them to know what those laws are. So let me just run through those quickly. This is taken from the Children's Act of Trinidad and Tobago. Section 41 says, subject to subsection 5, a person who knowingly makes or permits to be made any, let me just increase this, makes or permits to be made any child pornography or copy thereof, publishes, distributes, transmits, or shows any child pornography, publishes or causes to be published any advertisement likely to be understood as conveying that the advertiser distributes or shows any child pornography, obtains access through information and communication technologies to child pornography, has in his possession or control any child pornography, or purchases, exchanges, or otherwise receives any child pornography, commits an offense and is liable on conviction on indictment to a fine of $30,000 and to imprisonment for 10 years. Now, what is important is also this fact. This is another thing I need you to note, need us to know, is that there are AI software that you can take someone's face, put it on a naked person, or take a person's image and take the clothes off that person. Again, this is AI. some of your children may think that this is a joke and it's just funny. Oh, you do it to me, I'm going to do it back to you. Not realizing that there are dangers that they can put themselves in problems. So it might be easier for them to get themselves in trouble than you may think, especially if they're not aware of what the laws are. Because it just takes one person, like when I was in high school, it just takes one person to start doing something. And then it spreads through the entire year group. And then it spreads through the rest of the school. And then, of course, the teachers find out, and then they're starting the investigations and everybody gets in trouble. Nowadays, it's a lot faster because of electronic means. So it just takes one person to take a picture, create a sticker, take that sticker, take off the person clothes, create another sticker with that. Somebody gets upset, take a picture of them, and do the same thing because, hey, tit for tat, not realizing this is now a naked person, whether or not it was generated or it's real. And now they have in their cell phone child pornography. Yeah. It's unfortunately that easy. We have in our hands a lot of power, but we don't know how to control it. And of course, that's the reason why we have these conversations, right? This is the one for Jamaica. Let me just pull this up. Child protection laws in Jamaica. In this act, distributing child pornography includes selling it or publishing it in any form and parting with possession of child pornography by exposing or offering it for acquisition by another person. A person who commits an offense under subsection 1A is liable on conviction on indictment before a circuit court to a fine or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 20 years or to both such fine and imprisonment. Subsection 1B, C, or D is liable on conviction of indictment before a circuit court to a fine or imprisonment for a term not exceeding 15 years. A person who knowingly causes or incites the involvement of a child in the production of child pornography in Jamaica or elsewhere commits an offense. A person who, having the custody, charge, or care of a child, allows the child to be used in the production of child pornography in Jamaica or elsewhere commits an offense. A person who commits an offense under this section is liable on conviction on indictment before a circuit court to a fine or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 15 years or to both such fine and imprisonment. So in other words, it will not be pretty at all. Not in the slightest. Right. So I know that was a lot to take in and we don't have much time, but let me just summarize. We can have a section for questions after. Fret not. Sextortion is, and you can just get ready to ask your questions so we can have them right after. You can start typing them. Sextortion is pervasive due to the highly sexualized nature of this generation and the availability of cell phones. Once upon a time, we had to have a friend who was older than we were to purchase certain magazines because they would not sell us because we were children. Not the case anymore. Predators prey on a need to feel accepted and belong. Therefore, it's important for us to give our child that acceptance and belonging. Because predators are actively hunting for victims, we have to be active in our protection of our children and those that are in our care, which means we have to know what the dangers are, including how persons may use AI as a tool to prey on our children, or how our children may use AI to prey on others or to get themselves in trouble for it as a tit for tat. Mentally sure per child, give them chores, give them responsibility. Give assistance, get assistance for your child. If there is any issue, make sure you contact the authorities and get counseling for your child if they are a victim of sextortion or anything else that requires counseling. Another thing is to impart on the child the importance of hard work, because unfortunately there are some who are going to be like, listen, why should I study when I can just use AI to do my work? Help them to appreciate that not every good thing is easy and not every easy thing is good. In fact, most good things tend to come through hard work. Help them to develop a healthy relationship with work. And that's why the chores are so important, because if they are going to be using AI to answer the questions, to do their SBAs, then I can assure you, when it is all said and done, when they are going out there to get a job, they won't be able to critically think. They won't be able to get that job. And then they're basically shooting themselves in the foot. And you certainly don't want to have that child in your house when they're 40 because they can't get a work, right? It's not a good idea. Not a good idea. Not a good, yeah. Additionally, make sure that you develop a healthy relationship with your child. Make sure that they are comfortable coming to you if there's an issue, because in life there will always be challenges. So what's important is that they recognize that they are loved, and taking their life or self-harm is not an option to be explored. Again, parents, get familiar with the trends and the AI software developments as they're rolled out. Become familiar with the cyber laws of your country. Share those laws with your child. And of course, become part of the Manly Man movement. Also, if anyone requires help, in Trinidad and Tobago, the suicide hotline is 800-5588. That's 800-5588. And in Jamaica, the mental health and suicide prevention hotline is 888-639-5433. That's 888-639-5433. I'm going to leave it here while I again ask, if you have any questions, feel free to start typing it out now. And I'll also post this as one of the screenshots for, or clip it, either one, for on Instagram and Facebook. So as I said before, we have parenting seminars. We have a WhatsApp parent group. The information that is here was actually, or the topic rather, came from the WhatsApp parent group. We asked them what it is that they wanted to have discussed. So feel free to message me afterwards if you're interested in becoming part of the WhatsApp parents group. We have boot camps where we expose the young men to different life skills. We have a mentorship program as well. And yes, questions. Any questions? Alicia says, thanks for the information. You're most welcome. The questions? Well, here's what we're going to do. While we wait on the questions, let me go to something else, which
games begin. So if you don't know how to, you keep it in our garage, then they will hit their 619.
So that was basically from our last boot camp. As I said before, basic home repairs, cooking, emotional intelligence, self-defense, car maintenance, all that good stuff. And our mentorship program allows you free access to all the relevant boot camps, free access to all the parenting seminars, weekly or bi-weekly meetings with parents, and activities such as 5K races, archery, etc. Ooh, I have a question. I have a question. I have a question. Lizelle, I hope I'm pronouncing that properly, asks, can we share some apps that parents can use to mirror their child's device to control and see their device activity? Yes, 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 yes. I'm gonna put it back up because we had it a little earlier. So 1 second. Where are we? Went too far. Was before the summary. Ah, there we go. Right, so these are a few. Most, if not all of them, would be able to mirror your child's device. And some of them do have the ability to limit screen activity, so you can shut it down when necessary also. So those should be, all three should be able to do so. What you can do is just look up these three and go on, let's say, YouTube, and YouTube will be able to tell you. What tends to happen is you have persons who would review each of them, and they'll be able to give you, just look for one that is about 5 minutes or less, and they'll be able to tell you, okay, these are the features of XYZ. So yeah, you should be good with any of these three. I will again post this screen as well as the one on the Get Help on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm going to post those two right after. Any other questions? Well, while we wait for another 2 minutes or less, we're going to be having another boot camp. This one is going to be running on Saturdays between the 27th and the 27th of September to the 8th of November at Trinity College East. That's in Trinidad and Tobago. and the cost is 1,000 TT. Age is from 12 to 17 years. Should be an interesting time, as it tends to be. Indeed. Indeed. Additionally, if there is anyone who wishes to be a sponsor to assist us, well, we shan't tell you no. Let's have a discussion. And if it is you have any other questions that you don't want to, oh, this is a very good question. Do you accept invite to the presentations in schools? If yes, what's the process, contact information, who to write, etc.? Well, just send me a message, send us a message on Instagram and Facebook, and we'll send you the form to fill out, and we'll take it from there. So that's it. Just send us a message on Instagram and Facebook, and we will send you the form for you to fill out, and we run with it from there. You're most welcome. Any other questions? I know it's a Sunday, and it was a heavy topic. A lot of, in terms of were any of the things unexpected? What are your thoughts on what you've heard? All right. Well, we're going to wrap up shortly. I want to thank you once more for giving me your time on a Sunday afternoon. And there are many things that you probably have on the stove. Ooh, Susan says AI targeting children can't get over it. Yes, it is eye-opening. The fact I don't even know what else to say. We have to be, I'll leave it there. And adults too, not just children. Anyone can experience. Yeah. All right. Ladies, and Alicia says, not unexpected, but always scared to hear about the suicidal rates and how easy it is with teenagers. Yeah, especially nowadays. I think, you see, we have to be so careful because, life and death is in the power of the tongue. There are certain phrases that they have a tendency of using now that they wouldn't have used in the past. So we have to be careful, and we have to have them appreciate the importance of using their words wisely. Sometimes they take, and we have to also have them appreciate how precious they are. I mean, they can be sometimes annoying, right? We're not disputing that fact. However, if it cannot be that the only time you interact with them, the only interactions we have with them is us saying, you are doing this wrong. Yes, you see that statement? This statement annoys me beyond measure. Like, it drives me up the wall. Anytime I hear them, it upsets me. They have to really be. I don't like it. I despise that state. You realize I'm not even saying it. It upsets me so much. So yeah, they we have to make them appreciate the importance of their words, the fact that life and death is in the power of the tongue, and it's important for them to appreciate their worth and therefore to act accordingly. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time. I hope that you have an extremely productive / restful evening and a productive week. And as always, stay safe. And thank you once more for being part of the discussion.